Our reading for this morning is from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 26. When evening came, Jesus was reclining at the table with the 12. And while they were eating, he said, "I tell you the truth, one of you will betray me." They were very sad and began to say to him, one after the other, "Surely not I, Lord." Jesus replied, "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man will go just as it is written about him. But woe to that man who betrays the Son of Man. It would be better for him if he had not been born." Today is Easter Sunday, the day many Christians around the world believed Jesus was resurrected, either literally or symbolically. On Easter Sunday around the world, Christians and others celebrate today as the beginning of Jesus' influence after his death, as either a living presence among them, or else as a continuing influence through the ongoing power of his teachings of mercy, justice, and forgiveness. Over the last few years, on Easter Sunday, I've explored with you many different views on resurrection and the divinity, or not, of Jesus of Nazareth. Today, I would like to explore a different angle, an angle which begins a week before Easter Sunday, on Palm Sunday. On Palm Sunday, Jesus entered the city of Jerusalem to be captured, arrested, tried, and persecuted by the Roman authorities. In order for Jesus to be arrested, the Romans had to know exactly who he was and where to find him. And for that to happen, he had to be identified. He was. He was identified by someone who knew him well. He was identified by one of his closest friends, one of his 12 disciples, Judas Iscariot. Judas's identification of Jesus was, in fact, a betrayal of him, a misuse of his trust and friendship, or at least that is what we've always been led to believe. Judas was an insider turned informant, or at least that is what we have been led to believe. And so Judas Iscariot has been since then one of the most reviled figures in the Christian scriptures and in Western culture, and perhaps the most complex and misunderstood. Today, I would like to explore the figure of Judas Iscariot. I hope you enjoy this morning's service. As we just heard in the reading this morning, Jesus said in the Passover meal that has come to be known as the Last Supper, that one of the 12 would betray him and lead him to be arrested. He said, "I tell you the truth, one of you will betray me." When the 12 protested, each of them saying, "Surely not I, Lord," he assured them that he was right, that he indeed would be betrayed by one of them, and for that one, life would become intolerable. Judas Iscariot is mentioned in the synoptic Gospels of Mark, Matthew, and Luke, the Gospel of John, and at the beginning of the Acts of the Apostles. According to the account given in the Gospels, he carried the disciples' money box and betrayed Jesus for a bribe of 30 pieces of silver by identifying him with a kiss. That kiss has become infamously known as the kiss of Judas. This kiss by Judas to Jesus identified Jesus to the arresting Roman soldiers. The pieces of silver were most likely intended to be understood as silver Syrian shekels. It was a particularly poignant act of betrayal, a bittersweet gesture to identify Jesus with an act so symbolic of love and friendship and loyalty, and one eliciting such trust and vulnerability on Jesus' part. The 14th century Italian artist Giotto painted a beautiful and evocative fresco depicting Jesus' kiss in a Scrovegni chapel in Padua. The fate of Judas after his duplicitous act is contested. According to the Gospel of Matthew, it says that after Jesus' arrest by the Roman authorities, but before his execution, the guilt-ridden Judas returned the bribe to the priests and committed suicide by hanging himself. The Acts of the Apostles, however, say that he purchased a field with the reward of iniquity, and falling headlong, he burst asunder in the midst, and all his bowels gushed out. This field is called an akeldama, or field of blood. For many Christians, Judas's betrayal has always been the source of many theological questions. Many see both misunderstandings and alternative explanations for the idea of the betrayal of God. These possibilities include the following scenario. Jesus did not foresee the betrayal by Judas. He was unable to prevent it. As a personification of God, Jesus had the power to do as he wished. However, Jesus understood that he had to be given up to the authorities so that he could do what he had come down to earth to do. So Jesus allowed Judas to betray him. And so Judas was an informed accomplice in Jesus' planned destiny. Before Jesus told his disciples that one of them would betray him, Judas had made his deal with the priests to betray Jesus. It seems that alternative explanations for Judas's actions have been around for a very long time. The Greek bishop and theologian Irenaeus, writing in what is now Lyon in France in the latter part of the 1st century AD, records the beliefs of one Gnostic sect, the Cainites, who believed that Judas was an instrument of the Sophia, which is the divine feminine wisdom of the Hebrew Scriptures, and that he earned the hatred of the demiurge, being the Greek idea of divinity responsible for the creation of the physical aspect of humanity. So Judas's betrayal of Jesus was a victory over the carnal world. The Cainites later split into two groups, Judas over Jesus Christ, disagreeing over the significance of Jesus in their theology. The text of the Gospels suggests that Jesus both foresaw and allowed Judas's betrayal. In the Gospel of John, chapter 13, verses 26 to 28, we hear Jesus say to Judas, "What you are going to do, do quickly." Now no one at the table knew why he said this to him. So many scholars suggest that while it's assumed that the other apostles did not know about Judas's betrayal, Jesus definitely knew. Despite the constant presence of this alternative angle, most modern Christians, whether laity, clergy, or theologians, still consider Judas a traitor. Indeed, the term Judas has entered the language as a synonym for betrayer. If we think of someone who regularly betrays someone, we'll often refer to him as a Judas. However, some scholars have embraced the alternative notion that Judas was merely the negotiator in a prearranged prisoner exchange that gave Jesus to the Roman authorities by mutual agreement, and that Judas's later portrayal as a traitor was an historical distortion. In his book, The Passover Plot, the British theologian Hugh Schonfield argued that the crucifixion of Christ was a conscious reenactment of biblical prophecy, and Judas acted with Jesus' full knowledge and consent in betraying his master to the authorities. Schonfield's hypothesis recognizes the fulfillment of prophecy in Judas's recorded actions without acknowledging that the prophecies were really fulfilled in history. A similar interpretation became well known to the general population through Martin Scorsese's controversial film, The Last Temptation of Christ, based on the novel by Nikos Kazantzakis. Kazantzakis' original conception was that Judas Iscariot's only motivation in betraying Jesus to the Romans was to help him, as Jesus' closest friend, through doing what no other disciple could bring themselves to do. This betrayal touchingly shows Judas as unselfishly sacrificing his own emotions, his own will, and crucially his own reputation, in order to obey his friend and master, so becoming the crucial figure in Jesus' fulfillment of his own desire, secretly expressed to Judas, alone among the disciples, to obey God through dying on the cross.